If one species is impacted by a disturbance, others can still perform the necessary ecological roles, enabling the ecosystem to recover more effectively. So, although biodiversity is reduced, um, if one species were to just have a if one species were to live, let's say for example the tree, if the tree were to live, then they can pick up the pace. They can pick up the pace for all the ecosystem to be brought back to life, because this will bring the primary consumers to eat more. However, it will still be a shortage of trees, which will kind of boost the ecosystem a little bit. Another thing, let's go on to how can humans, human activities, they alter biodiversity as well. And there's plenty of ways that we do this on a daily basis. For example, we got pollution and climate change. Like pollution, by simply driving cars to transport to get from. Hold on, can you see me here? All right, simply driving cars for transportation to get from point A to point B. The gas releases gas into the atmosphere, which we call pollution, and ultimately pollution is the introduction of harmful materials into the environment. So with this gas just being released into the atmosphere, it can hinder biodiversity by killing a lot of plants. Example of this, it also can affect the marine area, as in the waters, in the seas, with oil, because gas, oil, So let's look down here. The deep water horizon of 2010 down here. So basically, these little ships are like oil rigs, and they transport oil throughout the seas and collect oil from the ocean. However, oil can spill in the ocean, and this can cause mass marine life deaths and long-term ecosystem damage. So this would just decrease biodiversity by decreasing population as a whole in the marine world. Next, we're gonna go climate change. Climate change is a real thing. For example, let's talk about the polar bears. Polar bears have a habitat loss in which polar bears are on the brinks of becoming extinct. If you can see right here, polar bears, they're on the brinks of getting extinct because their habitat, which is the Arctic, is starting to melt, and their whole environment is so bent on being able to live in the Arctic snowy environment. But with this melting, it's starting to threaten their survival. And climate change is basically a long-term shift in weather patterns and temperatures, such as rising sea levels, more frequent heat waves, and changes in precipitation. And climate change is currently affecting the Arctic Sea, making it melt, and ultimately hindering the polar bear population. Because without the sea ice, this can threaten their survival, and they won't be able to thrive any much longer. And this can ultimately cause the polar bear population to become extinct. Next, we have let's say we have interdependence in ecosystem, and a change in one species can impact others in overall stability by let's translate over here. For example, we got the Yellowstone National Park, 1995. Wolves were reintroduced into the environment in 1995, and but there was an elk population that already, was there. So if you look here, it says this graph shows the impact of wolves on the elk population since 1994, the year before reintroduction. Okay, so right here it said the elk population is in black, the wolf population is in green. So from the year 1994, 1995, the elk population has been decreasing, while the wolf population has been increasing. And with this, you can put two and two together and tell that as the wolf population increases, the elk population decreases, because the wolf population feeds on the elk population. So that's just how that works. Because say at first elk population was at an all-time high before the wolves were introduced into the ecosystem, but now the wolves are there. It's just crazy. But yeah, that allowed vegetation to recover and supporting diverse species, a phenomenon known as the trophic cascade. Pretty much, trophic levels like the plants, any primary consumers. That gave them a chance to that gave all the primary consumers a chance to increase, because the elk population feeds on primary consumers. And without the elk population eating the primary consumers will be able to the primary consumers, also known as the trophic level, will be able to increase in population. But the key point here is what I'm trying to say is species rely on each other for food, shelter, and reproduction. The removal or decline of one species can cause a ripple effect leading to instability. And this is what I said earlier, with the what was I talking about? I think I was talking about the Amazon rainforest situation, but each species rely on each other. So if I was to put so the trees, without the trees, let's say what can I say? Say like a acorn tree, What eats acorns? Squirrels, okay? So without the trees, the acorn tree, let's say there was a drastic decrease in the acorn trees, the squirrels will also decrease as well, because they no longer are getting acorns from the food from the tree to eat on, so they will decrease as well. And as the squirrel population decreases, anything that feeds on the squirrel population will decrease as well, because now there's a drastic decrease in the squirrels, because the squirrels can no longer feed on the acorn trees. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, species rely on each other for food, and it just not just food in general, just anything, shelter and reproduction. Reproduction goes into food. Without them being able to eat and survive, that goes into fitness. Organism fitness is basically their ability to survive and reproduce. And if you can't survive off of food, then you won't be able to reproduce. And that just goes on how one species lives off of the other. And if one species dies, I'm not gonna say one species in general, because secondary consumers, it doesn't work. Because there's always gonna be the way the food web works in different ecosystems. There's always gonna be something that eats something. Something's like there's always gonna be a top of the food chain, but something's always gonna be able to defeat that top of the food chain organism. So yeah, any organism. If one organism dies, if one organism increases, the organism increases as well. It just works both ways. I got another example though. Let's say the squirrel population. Let's say a squirrel population was to increase. If a squirrel population was to increase, and the snake population decreased, squirrel population would keep thriving, because the snake population can't eat them anymore. Let's say the snake eats a squirrel, But if the snake population is decreasing, then the squirrel population will just keep increasing and keep thriving and keep reproducing, because there's nothing trying to kill them at the moment. And they still have the trees to worry about, and there's nothing wrong with the tree at the moment. And so that pretty much goes into what I have right here, the wolf and elk population. When the wolf population when the wolf population, I'm sorry, my brother is okay. All right, when the wolf population came into the habitat, the elks pretty much just died off as the wolves just